Check. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the AWS DC Summit. Your hosts this morning are Angela Campbell and myself. I'm Derek Williams from the AWS Federal Civilian Team. This morning's session is entitled Veterans Affairs Leverages the AWS Cloud Elasticity Product During COVID-19. And this morning's sessions will be led by Dan Maschek, AWS Senior Solutions Architect for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and also our special guest, David Cantanoso, the Director of ECSO, the Enterprise Cloud Solutions Office of the Department of Veterans Affairs. After this session, we'll host a brief Q&A session, and just a few reminders and helpful hints for us. If anyone has to use the restroom, it's outdoors on the left. Also, the emergency exits are outdoors on the left as well. And one thing we would like for you all to do is please turn your cell phone ringers off. That'll be great. And during the session, please keep your mask on. We really appreciate you respecting that, and we thank you for that. Well, we're going to start this session. Thanks again, and let's give a warm welcome for Mr. Maschek and Mr. Cantanoso.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Hello, I'm Dan Maschek.
Dave Cantanoso, and we're going to go to the next slide. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how VA used AWS to survive or get through the pandemic with some critical applications that were necessary for our VHA primarily in this conversation, but also telework for the VA. So we're going to talk a little bit about an introduction to what the VA is, talk a little bit about our timeline, our office, some of the things we're looking to get out of cloud migration, and then talk about how we use the AWS for the pandemic. Next slide. So for those who don't know, the Department of Veterans Affairs is the second largest federal agency. If budget were revenue, we're probably a Fortune 9 size organization. We have three primary missions. Veterans Benefits Administration processes thousands of benefits claims for veterans around the country. We have the Veterans Health Administration, which operates 1,300 medical facilities, 140 hospitals within that number, and it's the largest unified healthcare system in the U.S. And then the National Cemetery Administration, which operates almost 140 cemeteries nationwide. We have operations that span from Puerto Rico to the Philippines and operate pretty much 24/7 providing service to our nation's veterans, about 20 million veterans. We have about 500,000 employees and contractors that work for us, so it's a large organization. And as you can imagine, we have all the corporate overhead and IT infrastructure that goes with supporting that type of organization. Next slide. So to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. That's the mission Abraham Lincoln gave us when the VA was founded, and we really take that message to heart. In OI, our Office of Information Technology, we have 8,000 employees, about 60% of which are veterans. The remainder probably have family members, friends that are veterans or spouses. So we really take that mission to heart and live it every day. Next slide. So our digital transformation strategy is designed to help provide world-class customer service to our veterans. It has four major guiding principles, several imperatives, and one of which is IT modernization, and a big part of that is our cloud migration, which is designed to help improve our innovation speed, agility. Go to the next slide.
Okay, and when you talk about the modernization and the speed of the agility, has going to the cloud given you that agility?
Oh, absolutely. We can provision resources faster, we can move quicker, we can leverage automation, so it's a lot of great advantages we've gotten.
And I assume with the VA as a large organization as it was, the normal churn was long and tedious, and now we kind of sped up the process?
Yeah, we've cut timelines from months and weeks to hours and days, sometimes weeks, but we've definitely compressed the timeline for migrating and provisioning resources and standing up applications.
Okay.
Or adjusting as they needed improvement or innovation. So some of the things we're looking to get out of the cloud is primarily in our mission to provide world-class customer service to our veterans is get new services to veterans faster. We want to support our DevSecOps initiative, which is designed to increase our agility speed. We're using a scaled agile framework primarily as our driving principles for that. Again, promote innovation, improve our security, particularly with the new executive order for cybersecurity. Cloud adoption is the first principle of that, and we're obviously helping drive that forward. Again, we're a big part of the digital transformation. We're trying to migrate the enterprise from a CapEx model to an OpEx model from a spending standpoint, modernize our IT inventory, increase flexibility, efficiency, and all about reducing costs and cost avoidance and improving services to our veterans, which is what we do every day.
And I like the outcomes that you have right here. And again, like you're a large organization, been around forever, and I know the mindset of moving to the cloud is kind of tedious at best, or it
Well,
creates
it's,
a lot
it's
of
new,
uproar.
right? Any large organization's got a lot of legacy infrastructure. We have 1,000 applications, primary applications in our inventory. And so we've got a large organization. The organizational change can be difficult, but we've gradually made progress, and we've got a lot of people understanding the benefits, and we're making a lot of progress. So training is a big part of how we're addressing that as well, providing training to staff, helping people understand the benefits of cloud.
Okay, and then as always, the naysayers of the data center, they always say that you don't reduce costs, but have y'all seen the cost reduction?
We've seen that in some applications. It varies by applications. In some cases, we've gotten as high as 20, 30% efficiency. Other ones we've migrated for other reasons, better security for a given application, more reliability, scalability. So there's all kinds of benefits. It's not always about cost.
So again, even though this was your target outcome, it's not the sole outcome of reduced
Right,
costs?
we don't base a migration only on cost. It's a factor we consider, but we consider a lot of other factors as well.
Okay.
So we started our journey to the cloud a long time ago, back at the 2011 timeframe when the federal CIO had the cloud first policy. We started dabbling in some cloud initiatives. That eventually migrated with OMB to Cloud Smart, which is what we follow today. Our initial cloud initiatives were, outside hosting providers we had where we did virtualized environments. We also did some on-prem. The Agile, I think it's Agile integrated development environment, something was done in the 2014 timeframe. We then began looking at migrating our Office systems to the cloud. We did one of the largest cloud migrations with our Office 365. Our Exchange team did that. They did an amazing job and got the 500,000 email boxes to the cloud in almost record time. It was the largest migration probably ever done for that or close to it. So that really got us started, kind of broke the ice. We then started looking at some initial projects. Our office was formed in April of 2018. We started the enterprise cloud around the same time frame. We have 2 cloud service providers. AWS is the primary one, and we have one other. Things like the Mission Act and community care and other initiatives that we've been able to support have really helped solidify the cloud as a primary part of our objective and our IT infrastructure. And we've also now, with the pandemic, we're going to talk about how we've used the cloud to survive the pandemic and get through it.
And just looking at your timeline, going from 2018 to 2021, y'all moved a lot of applications. VBMS, I know, would be a huge application for you.
Yeah, so a lot of times consultants will tell you, start small, get your feet wet, get some experience. We did the exact opposite. We moved some of our biggest, most mission-critical applications like VBMS to the cloud right away. It was risky, but at the same time, once we were able to prove that that could migrate to the cloud and other ones like it, it really kind of locked in the idea that cloud will work and we can use it at the VA.
So you kind of hit the ground running, because I'm seeing 221, 100 apps. That's a lot of apps.
Yeah, we're now up to over 130 in
Okay.
the cloud now, and we've got about another 50 in flight today, and that's constantly changing, so we're gradually moving more and more every day.
Okay.
So our organization is Enterprise Cloud Solutions Office. Our primary mission is to implement, build, operate, and sustain the VA Enterprise Cloud, to help application teams migrate to that cloud or build new applications in the cloud, and also serve as a sort of a focal point for cloud technology, help the VA identify things it can leverage in the cloud to serve veterans.
And as this goes, I know a lot of people like to do comparisons of how you operate cloud versus on-prem, but this kind of looks like your traditional on-prem organization structure that you would use.
Well, the way we operate, we're a self-contained operation that operates the cloud, right? So it's our responsibility, kind of like a small startup organization. When we started, we really were within the VA, and now we're obviously, our focus now is on maturing that operation to become, more and more, increase our levels of automation and maturity and sophistication. But absolutely, we operate in a similar way to the on-prem. We have the same requirements to provide, SLA capability and reliability, response to incidents. It doesn't change.
Okay.
So think about the VAEC as an internal cloud for the VA, but built on the public cloud service providers. So we take the building blocks, that we call them, from the cloud service provider, the services, for example, that AWS provides, and then we build some additional services on top of that all of our applications would need, and then the applications can then leverage either the native cloud services or the building blocks that we've created, plus additional tools we've installed on top of those building blocks to build their applications. They really can just focus on delivering service, delivering the functionality the application is supposed to deliver. They don't have to worry about a lot of the things that are common services, and it saves a lot of time for not only just for implementation, but for security, getting their ATOs and things like that. It just really helps accelerate across the board.
And just looking at this, you're in more than a hybrid environment. You're more of a hybrid/multi-cloud environment. Have you had any problems kind of weaving the 2 or 3 together?
No, everything, well, I said we haven't had problems. Anything large, we've run into obstacles along the way, but we've been able to overcome them. But largely, it works very well. We've got the 2 cloud providers. We've got the on-prem environments. We have applications that run in one or the other. We have applications that run in one that rely on services or data from the other or from on-prem. And so far, every application will be able to migrate. We figured out ways to do it and got equal or better performance.
Okay, and you didn't see any lag going from cloud provider 1 to on-prem or cloud provider 1 to cloud 2?
Where we did see it, we were able to engineer around it and tune the network or tune the applications to work with it, but it was minor. It was a prediction that it would be major problems, but we really didn't see the little negative effects that were anticipated.
Okay.
So again, what is the VAEC? So it starts with our 2 cloud service providers, and then we add on top of that common services like we make Active Directory available. We have tools for governance like Turbot or AI ops like Science Logic or application performance monitoring like Dynatrace or AppDynamics. We add those on top, and we have other tools like GitHub, things that every application is going to need in a common way so that they can basically bring their application in and then inherit security controls and use those common services and really, again, just focus on building their applications and delivering service to veterans.
Okay. And now on these services that you're talking about, like you're building used, leverage a few of the services that we had. We had AWS Marketplace and then used professional services.
So of course we use all the standard Amazon services, EC2, S3, et cetera. Then we have leverage from time to time for various specific projects, Marketplace to acquire specific tools for projects to use to build their application. And then of course we rely on the professional services team. They're really an integrated part of our AWS team between our other contractors, our VA staff, and then our ProServe team. We're one integrated unit building and migrating applications in AWS.
Okay. And some of the benefits you have of Marketplace is you're able to have that speed that the VA was looking at. So again, we heard the procurement cycle could have been months. And now that you're leveraging the Marketplace, it's kind of a click and go.
Where Marketplace enabled us to use some of the same cloud capacity credits that we're using to use the AWS services for specific tools. So it was very helpful.
Okay. So again, you're not using your normal licensing procurement thing. Now, as the compute is as a consumption, your license is as a consumption. So you're not sitting there with a license that's not doing anything. And that's where the Marketplace comes in. Also with the professional services, as Dave talked about, you could see that life cycle was going pretty quick from 2018 to 2021. So I'm sure not everybody was an AWS expert, right?
No, and having an embedded AWS team working with us every day right there with our team, familiar with the VAEC implementation, familiar with the VA requirements, the VA network requirements, the TIC infrastructure, having that right on site whenever we ran into an AWS problem, we could just pick up the phone or have one of the ProServe guys help us out or provide over-the-shoulder training to get stuff done. It was very quick.
And that's where the professional services come in, because we help you to speed with the migration. We can supplement your cloud expertise, whether it be at the level 10 or level 1. We kind of deepen that bench right there. And as you say, we gave you a pretty good deep bench on that when you did the migration. Was there any tension between, hey, we're the VA staff versus the ProServe? Did they kind of work together?
No, I think like any organization, you have the forming, storming, norming type of thing. But once everybody got familiar with each other and understood the roles, it really worked out really well. And having that tier 4 or 5 level support right there on the team every day just makes things go a lot quicker and gives you the confidence that we're not going to have a problem we can't solve, right?
Okay, no, that's great. Great to hear. So another thing that Dave was talking about, I'm sure everybody's seen our what we refer to as the security cloud model, where we say that we're in charge of controlling the security of the cloud, you are in control of the security in the cloud. And as we know, the VA has to go through a strenuous ATO process, and what FedRAMP status do y'all have to have?
Yep, we require FedRAMP for any cloud services, depending on the level of data that we're using, could be moderate or high. We could also use low, but there aren't too many applications the VA using low model. So we built our 2 cloud environments FedRAMP high, right? Because VA data is very important. Protecting veteran data is our primary mission. So we want to make sure that everything operates at a high level. We could always deploy on top of that a lower level FedRAMP for specific applications when that's the right thing to do. Prior to having the cloud, ATOs at the VA would take 12 months to maybe 18 months, sometimes longer to get all the security controls documented, put it through. But with the advent of the cloud, we leverage something called cloud control inheritance. So we inherit the security controls from the AWS FedRAMP package, then we build additional controls out in VAEC, and then the applications that migrate into the cloud in a layered approach can just focus on the remaining controls. They inherit those controls, and we've cut the controls down from hundreds to 50, 60, 70 controls, depending on the application, it varies. But it's really speeded up our ATO process. I think our record is like 17 days for an ATO, and others, and sometimes normally 2 to 3 months.
17 days is pretty amazing. I know the process with the bureaucracy of going through the controls. So with that model, what you're seeing is we're taking control of the ATO process of the cloud, and you're controlling the application, which, to be honest, I mean, compute is compute, storage is storage. You're just going through a paper shuffle exercise every single time, and now this is you taking care of our inheritance.
Right, and VA also upgraded to a tool called EMAS, which enables security control inheritance in a much more elegant way. It's a SaaS application. So we were one of the first systems to be loaded into EMS, so our controls were in place for other project teams to inherit from using that application. So that also speeded up the management of the ATO process as well.
Okay.
So again, if you look at this diagram, this kind of shows you how VAEC is structured. Everything in the green box is provided by the VAEC. So there's a whole, I'm not going to read it to you, but there's a whole list of services, I rattled some of them off earlier, that we provide. Another important thing that we provide is in the kind of the center bottom, which is the bandwidth from the VA network through the TIC to the external cloud, which is AWS in this case. We have redundant high-speed direct connects that go through our TIC locations, all 4 of them, up into AWS, so that application teams don't have to worry about putting in BPE requests or business partner extranet requests for every one of their applications. They can leverage our highway that we built to AWS, which saves a tremendous amount of time. There's just sometimes they may have to request specific ports, protocols, or IP addresses to be permitted to go through a certain way. But other than that, the highways are in place. We manage that bandwidth for them, and that saves a tremendous amount of time. And then the applications really just are responsible for the things you see in the colored blocks, their functionality, how they want to build their application out. And we do our best to provide a limited amount of governance with guardrails and let them be able to innovate using the AWS tools and services they want to use. As long as they're FedRAMP authorized, they can use them for their application. And sometimes we can even work with AWS and our security office, cloud security architecture team, to permit use of things while they're going through the FedRAMP process for specific applications if it's necessary.
And so if I'm understanding correctly, y'all have this kind of baked in your cloud formation templates. So when you basically set up an account and give it to that mission owner, it's already have this pre-baked in. So like day 1 request account, day 2 they can hit the ground running.
Yeah, there's some process ahead of time that we go through. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But once their cloud is provisioned and we're ready to do the provisioning step, there's automation that sets up the account. It puts the initial security controls in place with the guardrails I talked about, sets up roles and permissions for the project level admins, and then they can get in there and start working right away. And our guardrails kind of protect the VA, but allow them to actually work in the self-service mode inside of AWS.
Okay.
So like other agencies, we consider the 6 R's when we migrate an application. Early days, most of it was lift and shift or lift and slightly replatform. I don't think we ever did a pure lift and shift. We've always done some adjustment of the application to take advantage of things like scaling or the availability zones and VM sizing and different things that we could use that the cloud makes easy. But then as we mature, we're getting more and more sophisticated. So we're looking at moving to more cloud native services, moving up to PaaS level databases, doing things like containerization with our VA Platform 1 that we're building on top of both clouds and even our on-prem environment. So our goal now is to not only get people to the cloud, but once they get there, don't have them get static, to have them continue to mature and improve the way they're using the cloud and deliver services.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you kind of, I would say like a makeshift lift and shift where you could use some of like auto scaling, the launched groups, and you leverage that, but now they're there for a few times, and their next iterations hit more cloud native.
Yeah, once they're in the cloud with an agile model, they're continuously improving. So they'll upgrade as they go. When they get more sophisticated, they'll improve their automation, they'll improve their scaling, maybe they'll upgrade their database, they'll refactor their application at that point. Some applications come in very sophisticated and can do all this right away. Other ones we just want to move for various business reasons. They get in place in the cloud, and then we continue to modernize and improve them while they're there.
Okay.
And so because we had 2 cloud environments and a lot of applications to evaluate, each cloud provider has their own methodology for migrating apps to the cloud, but because we're the VA and we have multiple clouds, we wanted to have our own agnostic process that also factored in a lot of the VA processes that are necessary, for example, purchasing the cloud credits, getting the ATO, some of the other applications we have to interface when you stand up an application or make changes to it. So there are a whole bunch of other systems. So we developed our own called the VA Lifecycle Management Framework, which is an agnostic process to take an application from our cloud intake all the way through to provisioning and operation and sustainment in the cloud. And then eventually, if something were to come out of the cloud or maybe graduate to SaaS or something like that, it would go to decommissioning. So there's a VA custom framework that we built over time, and it's really helped us migrate a lot of applications. Like I said, over 130 now, 50 in flight. We also built a custom system called CloudKey with a vendor that we had on board, Iron Arch, that helped us build this tool that is really customized for that process and ties in a lot of automations and integrations with VA systems. So it really helps us manage that pipeline very well.
And how long, and I assume this is kind of the end state where you landed. This is not where you started at? So
no, our first migration started with, basically spreadsheets and almost index cards, right, where we migrated the first one. That graduated to a SharePoint site where we had tracking the intake and documentation, and now we've graduated to this system that's fully automated. Not fully automated, but it has automations. It's basically an application you can log into, web-based, and it tracks the whole migration process.
And this cycle, I'm sure it's still going to be maturing as it goes.
Right,
But right now, it feels
as our DevSecOps organization improves, we're looking at making a unified intake, so some of this is being brought into that process. We're taking best practices from other processes, and we're always evolving it, trying to continuously improve.
So kind of what I'm hearing is, like you said, you're always improving, so you're not going to say like one ring rules them all. You're always kind of evolving as it goes.
We're always looking for feedback, lessons learned, and feeding that back into our efforts to improve the processes all the time.
And very non-traditional than a corporate environment of VA, because I'm sure they were very rigid and structured as it goes, and this kind of being more agile.
Yeah, that's not really part of the cloud migration per se. It's the whole VA's effort to move to a DevSecOps from a waterfall method, right?
Okay.
So that's part of that whole process of the IT organization itself modernizing.
Okay.
So in March of 2020, the pandemic hit. We're all familiar. We've been living through that now. And VA, because of our large workforce, had two challenges to address, right? First, we had to get to a mode where more of our work, we had a good telework capability in place already, but we had to massively increase that so we can get most of our VHA staff that didn't have to be in the hospitals out of the hospital. Some of our physicians were older and they were concerned about the risk of COVID, so they were going to work remotely. So there was a huge shift to telework, and at the same time, we couldn't bring veterans into the medical centers unless it was absolutely necessary, because they were getting overloaded with COVID patients, and we didn't want to bring veterans in for routine care to a high-risk environment, because also that population can be older as well. So two things we had to try to address. So we use the cloud for both, right? So from a telework standpoint, we worked with our on-prem teams to rapidly expand our Citrix farms to create scalable capacity in all 5 cloud regions that we have available to us. And then, while at the same time, they massively scaled up the physical infrastructure as well. So it was a dual effort to put worst case scenario type capacity and scaling in place very rapidly. We did that in a matter of months. We normally would have taken us a year and a half probably to do the amount of work we were able to pull off in a month. So that was an incredible effort. And the second effort was telemedicine. So prior to the pandemic, the VA was doing in February of 2020 maybe 25,000 telemedicine sessions in a month. We had to rapidly scale that up, and now today, and even early, maybe that summer of 2020, we were able to get up to 45,000 telemedicine sessions in a day. So incredibly large scale, incredibly massive increase in that, and we did that 2 ways. We worked with our VA Video Connect team that was running the on-prem systems. They doubled the capacity primarily as rapidly as possible in our on-prem systems. At the same time, we stood up a parallel environment called Care2 in our Amazon cloud that enabled us to have a scalable capacity attached to that, and that's how we really got to the point where we could scale that very rapidly. And today, that's how we operate. And we're in the process of migrating more and more of that into the Care2 environment as we go.
Okay. And as we talk about Care2, this is the architecture that we had on the Care2, and their environment runs on a PEX system, and it's not really complicated. It's kind of more your traditional. You have your web tier, your application tier, and the way they leveraged it, they put it in 2 different regions, and all you had was your NAT gateway, and then you had pretty much your normal admin session where you had your jump box or your Bastion host, and then they just had a web interface, and then the application layer was on that auto-scaling group where it would expand and contract. And again, all you had to do was approach this through an app on your phone, web portal, phone, however you wanted to approach this. But with that elasticity, as you saw, we went from 25,000 users per month to 45,000 per day.
Per day.
So again, with that scale up, did you see any difference in quality from on-prem, off-prem? Did you see?
No, so the quality was on a par. One of the things we leveraged with Care2 is one of the first applications in the VA that used the TIC 3.0 construct, where they leveraged the Amazon network to get traffic to the Care2 environment instead of going through the VA TICs directly, because those choke points, which we were trying to make those choke points available, bandwidth there for the telework environment, right? We had all this capacity that would scale up very quickly, so we were doing everything we could to minimize the flow through those points and also get as much traffic as we can in. So we leveraged Amazon's network to get our veterans there. We were able to build Care2 in such a way that it tied into the existing system, so the regular VA Video Connect system was able to route the calls, the telemedicine sessions from the doctor to connect them with the patient, whether it was on-prem or in Care2. It was transparent to the user. Right?
Yeah.
They just didn't know where they were hosted. They just used the application. So that was another benefit. At one point, we started out with maybe every day with maybe 100 servers that we kind of pre-warmed that up in the morning to get ready for the surge of activity, and then that's done with automation scripts. And then throughout the day, we'll hit a high water mark of maybe 100, 150 servers at any given time, and then at night, that scales back down again with automation.
So not only did you have the elasticity expand and contract by your need, but you're also able to control costs, because again, nobody's going to call you at midnight or 11 for the telehealth
Right. We get a very limited amount of calls. We'll have a few servers that run overnight,
Yeah.
but then in the morning, we ramp up a bunch of servers to get ready for that onslaught that starts, 8 a.m. in the East Coast and then gradually expands as we roll across the time zones. And then at the end of the day, when the time zones roll off, the East Coast goes home, it kind of shifts, and then at the end of the day, we scale back down to our nighttime formation.
Okay.
So another application that we moved early, kind of that go big first kind of approach, is we decided early on in the migration to see if we could move our Vista application, which is the VA's homegrown EHRM system, which has been in existence for decades. It's built on a programming language called MUMPS. It's a fairly old application. There were a lot of concerns we could even get this to run in the cloud. So back in the fall of 2019, we set a pilot project up to see if we could move a couple of Vista instances to the cloud to prove that out as a capability. We managed to do that. We overcame a lot of obstacles like fixed IP addresses for legacy medical devices. We also leveraged things like availability zones to improve reliability, performance. It was basically lift and shift. We didn't really modify the application, but we modified kind of how it was platformed to give us that flexibility and scaling capability. And then we leveraged the resiliency of the availability zones. And compatibility-wise, it ran fine. It runs well today. We able to deliver the same or better performance. And we also now have moved all of our Vista DR sites up into our Amazon cloud as well. So we've got over 130 DR sites, 2 production Vista sites in the cloud. And now we're looking at other ways to possibly expand or move that forward and take more advantage of the cloud every day.
And I kind of want to stop here on the Vista aspect because I want to hit on the aspect of the legacy. This is what, 1970 technology?
Maybe before that, yeah, very old.
So moving this to the cloud has probably a lot of reservations to move to, like they don't want to do it.
Well, they didn't want to do it. They had legitimate concerns. This is a medical patient care act. If it doesn't work, we can't treat patients in a hospital. So very legitimate concerns about the validity or whether it's capable to move it, which is why we did a small pilot first, did a lot of testing with test sites, proved that out. We proved that the applications, Vista is not just a single, we only move the core infrastructure to Vista to the cloud. Vista has a lot of applications. We call them they're COTS applications. They're different applications that basically talk to the Vista core system to provide service to veterans. We didn't move those, but we had to make sure when we moved a Vista instance to the cloud that those applications could talk to it and perform just as efficiently talking to the cloud instance of Vista that they could the on-prem instance of Vista. So we had to test that very extensively during the migration. When we proved that we were comfortable that we would get similar performance, then we said, okay, now we can move that one Vista to the cloud. When that was in the cloud for a few months, and we saw that that was working fine and we're getting sufficient performance with that medical center, we then said, okay, that was a small one. Let's move one of our biggest ones to the cloud so that we could run any size Vista in the cloud. We did that. So Valley Coastal Bend in Texas was our first Vista site to move. That was a smaller site. They only operate during the week. They're closed on the weekends. It was a low-risk one to migrate. They got great performance. They really liked it. And then after that summer was over in October of 2020, we moved the following October 2020. Yeah, it was October 2019. We moved Omaha to the cloud. And that was a medical center, very large medical center, multiple hospital facilities, multiple outpatient clinics, and then that's been operating in the cloud just as well.
Okay.
And this is a bit of an eye chart, but essentially we replicated the Vista architecture that runs on-prem. We basically replicated that in the cloud and then optimized some of the things for AWS and the network connections back to VA.
And as these two applications, what I'm seeing here is not only are you're pushing in a hybrid mode, actually, because you have stuff on-prem, you have stuff in the cloud, but what you've noticed is there's no degradation or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously latency differences, but they weren't sufficient enough in any case to prevent the application. We did have to do some tuning related to which cloud region we use initially. Initially, we were deployed in GovCloud West, but because we had on the traffic through the VA TICs, the speed of light challenge came into case where they were getting slow performance. One of our applications called CPRS is a very chatty remote procedure call application. It has a lot of conversations back and forth with the server. And over that long distance, they were getting slow response time on some of the bigger reports they would generate, for example. So we did a lot of network tuning and analysis and figured if we could just shift it to GovCloud East, which is closer to the TIC location they were coming in through, we would get much better performance, almost equivalent to being at the data center. So we actually, that summer, we really executed a DR exercise in the cloud for the first time. We did it over a weekend. It went very well. It was very automated, and we were able to switch over to GovCloud East over a weekend from West and then continue running. And we saw immediate performance improvements, and that's kind of how we've adjusted now. Depending on where we're going to migrate to Vista will be dependent on which of the regions we put it in.
No, and that's amazing, because like I said, I mean, this is a very legacy application, and I know there's always hesitation. As you said, risk averse. We want to make sure that you do this properly, because then this is your health record data, so this is very important.
So overcoming challenges, as I said before, VA has a huge portfolio of applications in addition to the thousands of have over 1,000 primary applications in our inventory. We have a lot of lesser applications that we also have to consider moving that talk to those primary applications. So we have to manage that. We have to bring on board cloud-based experience, from a personnel standpoint, both from a VA personnel, contractors. We had to bring in expertise that could really help us solve some of these problems quickly so we could do these migrations. And then getting the culture to think about the cloud as a valuable asset as opposed to a competing interest or something that wouldn't work, as scary new technology. So those are some of the challenges any large organization would face when you're trying to migrate to the cloud, and we've successfully navigated through that.
So what are some bumps and bruises that you saw from beginning to end as far as things that you've learned?
Well, communication's important, right? You want to make sure you have a clear message that what's the mission, why are you doing this, what are the benefits, and kind of having that repetition throughout the leadership chain of command, right? So having strong leadership at the top, providing that championing our effort was key, and we were lucky to have that at the VA from the CIO all the way down through our leadership ranks to our team and then down the lower level supervisors. We've got a consistent message going out and consistent support for cloud migration.
Oh, that's great.
And we try to also, when we migrate an application, we don't measure its performance any differently than we would for an on-prem application. Our goal is to make sure that if we migrate something, we do no harm, right? It's at least as good as on-prem, if not better. Hopefully, it's always going to be better, but if it's got to be as good and the user experience has to be the same, or we're not going to migrate it, or we're not going to cut over to it in production if we're not going to get results that are successful. And we check for things, ease of use. A lot of times we haven't changed the application, we've just changed its hosting paradigm into the cloud. Ability to access data has got to be performant. Security, we want to make sure we always improve if we enforce security. Response time, something we look at. Customer satisfaction. So we try to measure all the things as if it were an on-prem app. Any application, it's the application being measured, not where it's hosted.
Okay, no, that's great. So again, what I'm hearing is cloud is no different than on-prem. It's just now you get some extra bells and whistles.
It's another part of our IT toolbox to solve problems for veterans. Yeah.
Okay.
So as I said before, some of the things that we knew made us successful was having strong executive leadership at the top that really supported and championed the effort and gave that consistent message when there were questions of why we're doing this or are we going to do this, right? We also took on a startup mentality, to really just get in there and try to innovate and get things done quickly, try new things, be open to that as part of a team. Getting a team of talented people in, whether it was VA staff or contractors, and operating as one team, right? Really, unless there's an inherently governmental decision that we need to make, we try to operate as one team and don't have a contractor VA hat on. We just operate to serve the veteran, and that helped us get a lot of things done more quickly than if we had some kind of artificial barriers that we created. And as I said earlier, cost savings or avoidance really is important, but in all honesty, that's not the only thing we look at. There's so many other benefits of going to the cloud that you should consider. You can't just get hung up on, well, is it going to be cheaper? And if it's not cheaper, we don't want to do it. Really, there's a lot of benefits to go to the cloud, so you should really be looking at it regardless.
And what would be one of those benefits outside of just cost?
Improved security, speed of agility,
okay.
Innovation speed. There's a long list.
Long
right?
list, okay.
Yeah, long list. So at this point, I think we've rattled on long enough. I think we just take some questions if you guys have any. Happy to do it.
Don't be shy.
Well, we're going to get it started
here.
here.
Okay. I see you, Derek.
Sorry for the delays. First of all, let's give Mr. Cantanosa and Mr. Maschek a big round of applause for a wonderful presentation. And we're going to start the question and answers in an orderly fashion. If you have a question, please, there's mics in the middle of both aisles, or feel free to stand up and pronounce your question slowly and surely so that we all can participate. And while you're lining up at the mics and we're going to start selection, AWS also has additional resources and leaders in the session today, including Josh Wells on the VA team and leaders Audrey Rinke and Daniel Boland, so you can ask them questions as well. Can you stand up, Audrey, Danielle, and Josh, so we know who you are? Excellent, so you can ask them questions. So we have a question on the right.
Okay.
Just making sure you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm very curious about your hybrid multi-cloud approach. I'm actually with Headquarters Air Force, with the ISR community, the intelligence community, and this is huge for us as we're going into the same type of deal with a hybrid multi-cloud approach. Do you have any type of white papers or lessons learned that your organization is willing to share?
Sure. So we work with a lot of other government agencies and share lessons learned and information. I have government-only documents I can share with your team. If you want to send an email to me offline, we can set up a call and discuss that, and we'll be happy to share information, help out any way we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
And on to kind of go a little bit further on that, because again, going multi-cloud, it's not like I'm going to put something here, something here, something here. You did have evaluation.
Part of that custom process, the VLMF has up front an evaluation process that helps us determine what we think the best fit for the cloud. Or if it's not the cloud, sometimes we'll give somebody a waiver and say, look, you're not ready to go to the cloud yet. We're going to come back and revisit it in 12 months, for example. Or we'll pick a cloud that it should go to where the best fit is.
And then kind of go a little bit further. I assume there's a matrix that you have, and it kind of that's
Sure, there's a kind of a rubric that we use to determine what cloud we should use or whether it's cloud ready, and then we have a whole team, a cloud advisory services team, veterans engineering, that works with us to do that evaluation up front, and then they make that recommendation to the VA. VA will either concur or change it, and then once we decide which cloud it's going to go to, it goes through the process, or we issue a waiver to the team to come back and revisit it later, or maybe a permanent waiver if it's something that's not cloud suitable. Right?
Okay.
Not everything's suitable to go to the cloud.
And to go a little bit further, like you talked about the Care 2, that, as you said, you function the FedRAMP high aspect, but that's FedRAMP moderate.
That's moderate, and that takes advantage of, again, a lot of the Amazon capabilities for the networking and TIC 3.0. That was a whole new construct as well.
Next question, sorry.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. With private sector organizations as well as public sector large organizations, getting off waterfall and embracing a new way of working is often challenging, to say the least. How did you get ahead of that with sometimes organizations have their own antibodies that kind of rush in and don't want to change and like the old way of working? Did you experience that, and were you able to get ahead of that successfully? You must have been. But
yeah, we've been able to get ahead of it. I think brute force primarily was how we did it. I mean, we were lucky enough to be a startup, so we had folks coming to the team new as a new team, so that helped a lot. We brought a combination of contractors and VA folks in that were motivated to make that change and kind of operate as a product as opposed to a project. And so since we're building the product, the VA Enterprise Cloud, and that's something the VA is doing now, product line management is part of our DevSecOps transformation. We were a little bit ahead of that before that even was a thing. We were kind of building VAEC as a product. Not that we knew that was coming, it's just how we were doing it, so it was fortunate. And so because we had that product mentality and we were a startup, that kind of helped us overcome some of and we're a new team coming together, so that kind of helped us as well.
Awesome, thank you.
And to kind of even go further, didn't that kind of tee off of your leadership?
And then having, of course, the leadership championship that was allowing us to do that and allowing us to work across those organizational silos that existed. We had a cross-functional team from people from various silos on our team, and we were able to break down some of those barriers just because we had leadership support to do it across the organization.
As you said, they had the brute force, they had the hammer to kind of...
That's where the brute force came in.
Hi, good presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Question I have is around your approach for end-user devices for your telework. What do you guys have? Standardization? Are you using GFE? Are you going to go soft clients?
So traditionally, it would be VA GFE that would be allowed to telework and connect to the VA network. Prior to the pandemic, it was through VPN only, directly. Now, post-pandemic, we're using TIC 3.0, and we have solutions that can use non-GFE devices and can connect without going through the TIC and without a VPN even directly. So we get direct Office 365 we use Amazon AppStream for some applications that are doing that, and we also have an Azure environment that allows non-GFE to connect as well. So we're much more flexible today than we were a little over a year ago.
Okay.
And due to that change, you pretty much say that was because of COVID hit, because that
It's
was the catalyst.
it was a catalyst, right? So getting that through any other time would have taken years, right, to get the permissions and make the changes to the TIC, to switch to 3.0, get people to accept it. But because of the pandemic, we were able to make decisions at a much faster cycle and take maybe a little more risk than we normally would, be a little less risk averse, and put those in place and prove out that they would work, which really helped get those technologies in place. And the success and the capabilities they brought to bear have been great, and I don't think we're ever going back. I mean, it's been tremendous.
And to kind of go with the earlier question, don't you think with that catalyst, that speed, now we can kind of stop the naysayers? Because again,
Well, yeah,
proof is in the
I
pudding.
think the speed of execution and the confidence level just got built through that 18 months, and that brought a lot of people together, right? It's nothing like a pandemic to focus you on a mission.
Yeah.
In terms of, we're going to work together to solve a problem, to save veterans. And also, for those of you who don't know, the VA has a fourth mission in addition to 3 that I mentioned, which is to back up the nation's healthcare system in a time of crisis. And so we were doing that, and we were getting ready for pretty much the worst case scenario. Thankfully, it didn't pan out as bad as some thought it might, but nonetheless, that was the mentality we had, and that brought everybody together across the board. We brought hardware in, laptops, mobile phones. We set up drive-through testing clinics, drive-through vaccination clinics, treating people in parking lots of hospitals overnight, setting up, that's just the non-IT stuff that we were doing. The medical system did amazing things. And then so all that kind of focused everybody across the VA on just getting the job done, and a lot of petty arguments or little concerns, they all went by the wayside, and mission became the only thing we focused on. And leadership, every day we had scrums with senior leaders, constantly tracking every project, multiple swim lanes. It was great, a thing to watch happen.
Yeah, no, I bet it was.
Any
other
additional questions?
Thank you. Great presentation. You'd mentioned some tool that you use to help with your ATO process to speed that up. I was just curious. I think I
It's
missed
called
it.
EMAS.
EMAS?
Yeah, EMASS.
Okay. Is that commercial?
It's government software as a service.
Okay.
So I think it's available in any government agency. If you can send me an email, I can put you in touch with our EMAS team.
Okay,
and
I'll
they
send
can-
you an email.
Yeah, they can tell you how to
supporting the IRS, and that's something
Yeah,
that's
no
close to
problem.
our
Yeah.
heart.
I'll put you in touch with the team that actually operates it, and they can tell you what you need to know about how to use it or get access to it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And access to the presentation. It was, like I said, it was a good presentation.
I'll
Is
defer
that
it to
available?
the,
I think we'll give out the presentations and the notes or whatever.
it's posted as part of the summit, so.
Great question.
I just want to echo again, great presentation. What are you doing today to manage the large bills and sprawls across the hybrid environment, the multi-cloud environment? How are you managing those bills and the disparity and connecting those to a visualization
You
or
mean
something
bills,
to
you mean the
manage?
cost, how are we tracking costs? So historically, we started tracking costs using just the basic tools from the cloud provider, which are pretty substantial, and spreadsheets and things like that to kind of track it. But now we've leveraged a tool called Aptio to help us do a couple things at the VA. One, track our cloud billing and provide that very precise live feed from both cloud service providers into Aptio. We're able to do it a multi-tenant model so each team can see their own cost for their application in the cloud, and that rolls up to then the product line level, then to portfolio level, and then of course the whole VA level, enterprise level. And then we also feed another instance of Aptio that's helping VA use the TBM model, TBM, business technology business model. I think
Yeah, that's it.
it's a
Yes,
financial
yeah.
model for breaking down costs by different technology pillars, and VA is moving to that for tracking its costs. And so we feed that directly in from one Aptio instance to another. And then there's other parts of the VA that are feeding the on-prem data into that, so we're going to have a very comprehensive way to track costs going forward.
Are there any additional questions?
Hi, just a couple of things. So this is a lot of change within the organization. 2 clouds, getting everything off-prem. How do you get the message out to the rest of VA, the developer teams that are all managing their products and their systems, and help them understand the things that have been done, the tools that are available? And then kind of part 2 of the question is, are there places that in environments that you've got to enable them without jumping all the way into the big boat of, I'm going to deploy something? What kinds of capabilities do you have there?
So we've got a multifaceted way of attacking that problem. So we have a SharePoint site for our team that publishes our publishable documents, information teams can look at. How do you do an intake? How do you get buy cloud credits? That kind of thing. Help sample language for acquisitions, that kind of stuff. We also have GitHub capability where we publish automation scripts and other documents that are available for teams. We've got a document library. We use something called Gov Delivery to send notices out to general notices, sort of like to user groups for our 2 cloud environments. We have lunch and learns. We do DevSecOps day meetings where we brief different aspects of the cloud. We have a whole bunch of different ways we try to communicate with the team members and let them know what's out there. Plus, we make ourselves available for teams want to meet with us to talk about the cloud and cloud capabilities. What was the second part of the question? So in both cloud environments, we have lab environments where we can get somebody in. So we have 2 types of lab environments. We have some that are completely isolated from the VA network, so they can they can try any cloud service that's available in that environment. Doesn't have to be FedRAMP. They can try software that's not on our technology reference model that they want to see if it would work or test it with other things. We can do some type of risk testing or antivirus penetration type stuff. We can do anything we want in those environments. And then we have actual lab environments that are built into the VAEC that have all the same access to functionality at a development level, so they can try things out and build things there before they try to go full production.
And to go a little bit further, because of the lunch and learns, I know every week we have either a lunch and learn where we talk about topics that are coming back, where is everybody in the VA, or in the following week afterwards, we have office hours where anybody can come from the VAs to ask questions about what's going on, latest and greatest. So again, working with you hand in hand as
So
partners.
we have an Amazon team, our account team, and our ProServe team is embedded in we consider them part of our team, and so they're available, like you said, to do the lunch and learns or do the office hours. And if there's a custom question that comes in out of the blue, we'll assign someone to reach out and talk to the customer and answer the question. So it's been a key part of. We do the same thing on the other cloud service provider. By having that embedded expertise on the team right there as part of your team, you can really move a lot faster.
And proof is in the pudding, because y'all moved a lot pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think so.
Hi, Dave. As we're wrapping up, just a quick question. If you have any lessons learned or anything you might do differently if you had to do this kind of all over again?
I'm sorry,
Building-
if I had to
setting
do
up
it all over again?
Setting up the enterprise cloud solutions office, yeah.
I'd like a magic wand that would just let me get yes every time I ask a question. But no, I think, considering hindsight being 2020 in a large organization, we probably had the best approach we could expect doing the difficult things that we did. But I mean, you know, better information transfer, getting people trained up faster, more rapidly would be the only thing I would try to do better, I guess. You know, for the most part, you know, get good leadership support if you're trying to stand this up. We had that. That was a blessing from day one. Good messaging, good focus on the mission, and then have a startup mentality. And like I said at my panel yesterday, don't be afraid to try things. I mean, get out there and do it. Don't just keep talking about it and whiteboarding it. Actually do something and prove you can get it done, because that helps you build momentum and get traction. And don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to fail. Just have that we're going to fix whatever problem we encounter mentality, and you're going to get through it.
And working with the VA, I'll concur with that statement, because again, we look like don't worry about perfection. Just let's get it good enough, get it in there.
Yeah, get an MVP, minimum viable product in place, get it working, show that it can work, and then optimize constantly. Constantly optimize.
And like again, you're not going to hit it out of the park every time. Sometimes you're going to have a dud, but again, let's get it in there, prove it, not theorize.
And then improve from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Dave, Mike
Hey.
Drew with Okta.
Hey.
With the success of the 2 Vista cloud migrations, are there other instances kind of in the queue to follow on?
So we're always looking and planning that. We don't have any teed up to start right away, but we are evaluating the possibility of moving additional ones to the cloud.
All right, if there's no other further questions, let's give them another big round of applause to Mr. Cantanoso and Mr. Maschek. Great presentation. Great presentation. And just some final notes. We'd like to thank you all for attending, and we all would like you to complete the survey via the app and the QR code. So please complete that survey. Thanks again. Thanks again.